If you can't create a Bitcoin, you can't create perfect money. If you don't have perfect money, then you can't actually posit an economy where the money doesn't deflect, where the money is true. So Satoshi gave us a perfect money. The perfect money made it possible to capture, to store, to channel, to distribute capital. What if I told you I could make your company live forever? You know, Gibson says the future's already with us, but it's not evenly distributed, right? In the modern world today, there are people in New York City that live in skyscrapers up 80 floors, and there are people that live in Africa in mud huts. The scientific method, the application of mathematics, disciplined logic, experimentation, engineering, trial and error. If we think about the scientific method applied to astronomy, right? The Copernican revolution and the breakthroughs in astronomy, they came because of a new instrument, right? Advances in optics allowed us to create a telescope. And before the telescope, before that technology, if you will, for 100,000 years, human beings looked up in the sky and they imagined they understood what was going on, and then they filled in the blanks with their superstition and their creativity, and they had their fears and hopes and dreams, and religion mixed in with observation, and they somehow got around to concluding that the universe revolved around the Earth. And if anybody suggested the universe did not revolve around the Earth, they were burned or canceled or ignored. And that's a horrific, wrong theory, and it causes you to make lots of mistakes in navigation. Maybe you'll never be able to master concepts that would be critical to advancing the civilization. And the scientific revolution applied to astronomy started with the technology. When that telescope was created, we could see the moons of Jupiter. When we could see the moons of Jupiter, we could start to calculate the impact, of the moons of Jupiter, and we could correlate those orbits to what we knew about Kepler's laws and mathematics. And somehow mathematics and physics were impacted by engineering and technology, and they resulted in a profound paradigm shift.
Here we have Michael Saylor, the executive chairman of MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy recently acquired an additional 11,931 Bitcoins for $786 million. This latest purchase brings the company's total Bitcoin holdings to 226,331 coins, which are valued at nearly $15 billion, given the current Bitcoin price of approximately $66,000. In a recent video with YouTuber Robin Saar, Michael Saylor discusses his views on Bitcoin. He sees Bitcoin as sound money, essential for improving the functionality of the economy. According to Saylor, Bitcoin represents a unique convergence of economics and science, forming a singularity that has the potential to transform the financial landscape. As we bring you clips of the interview, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more video like this. Be sure to watch until the end of the video, where Michael provides brilliant insights on how Bitcoin can transform the world for all 8 billion people. You can join the conversation by dropping your thoughts, comments, and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel growth. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Economics is pseudoscience before Satoshi. It's a quasi-religious liberal art, and it's full of people's opinions and prejudices and biases. And in the absence of an instrument, and the instrument in this case is perfect money or proper money. If you don't have an instrument of proper money that doesn't have deflection, then you can't posit a properly functioning economy. And so all of the economists before Satoshi They were trying to work out the laws of economics with seashells and glass beads and pieces of paper and credit instruments, and those are all imperfect instruments, right? They're so imperfect you could never create a beautiful or a perfect mechanism. And in the absence of the ability to manufacture the perfect mechanism, you can't move forward with scientific advance. So when I say Bitcoin is singularity where science collides with economics, I mean that we invented an instrument, and the instrument was it's a combination of, it was the math of cryptography, it was the engineering and the manufacturing of semiconductors, it was the computer science of the internet. And when you put the internet and semiconductors and you put cryptography together with a few insights, you can create this mechanism that we call Bitcoin. And that becomes a mechanism to keep true track of money, to measure true money. Before cryptography and the internet and modern semiconductors, you couldn't create a Bitcoin. If you can't create a Bitcoin, you can't create perfect money. If you don't have perfect money, then you can't actually posit an economy where the money doesn't deflect, where the money is true. When the money becomes true, the money is the asset which is used to channel capital through time and space, right? The essence of economics is the proper allocation of capital. And so Satoshi gave us a perfect money. The perfect money made it possible to capture, to store, to channel, to distribute capital, to program capital in an economy. And how profound is that? Well, I mean, the difference between 2% inflation or 2% deflection per year and 0% deflection or 0% inflation is the difference between an average life expectancy of 70 and immortality. Right? We figured out how not to die, right? It's pretty profound, right? When you think about it like that, what's the difference between perfect money and imperfect money? Perfect money is economic immortality. Imperfect money is we all have a short, brutal life, right? Terminated early. There's a time when there's a 40% infant mortality rate between the ages of 0 and 5, right? Your kid's going to die. There's a time when the likelihood that a woman giving birth dies in childbirth was like 30%, right? Before science crashed into medicine, your children were more likely than not to die. Your wife was more likely than not to die in childbirth. If you got her pregnant 3 times, it was a death sentence. And so you think about life before science impinged on medicine, pretty big deal. You think about science impinging upon astronomy, a pretty big deal. Science, blasting into navigation, right? Pretty big deal. And now science colliding with economics, pretty big deal. I think if you look at economic creatures, the classic economic creature in modern society is the corporation. The average life expectancy of a corporation is something like 10 years. You create a company and it lasts more than 10 years, then you've lived longer than most. The number of corporations that are more than 100 years old, right? What percentage of people live to be more than 100? Like 0.1% or 0.01%. What percentage of corporations live to be more than 100? 0.0001%. Well, what if I told you I could make your company live forever? Right? So how profound. we're talking about eliminating corporate mortality, right? We're talking about stretching economic vitality easily by a factor of 10, maybe by a factor of 100, maybe by a factor of a million. So, how will it change society? Well, it won't change society uniformly the same everywhere. It's like, Gibson says, the future's already with us, but it's not evenly distributed, right? In the modern world today, there are people in New York City that live in skyscrapers up 80 floors, and there are people that live in Africa in mud huts. I think you got to look at Bitcoin is this pure digital capital, which means it's the technology to capitalize a family, capitalize an individual, capitalize a corporation, capitalize an institution, a charity, a nonprofit, or a country or a city, or a university, right? We throw away throw around the word capitalize as a colloquialism, like, oh, you're going to capitalize on that? Okay, but if you think, and that's because economics has been pseudoscience, and capital has been kind of a liberal arts type word. If you walked up to people on the street and said, what do you think capital is? And you asked them before Satoshi or before then it said Bitcoin, it's not clear what they would give you as an answer. They would, say something about Karl Marx said it was bad, or capitalists to do something with it, but it's such a fuzzy word. But in the aftermath of Bitcoin, capital is economic energy, and I give you an asset to store economic energy. And now, if I can store economic energy in a digital asset, I can move the capital potentially at the speed of light at high frequency, so I can move it through space. Capital's never been something we could work with, we could program. So Bitcoin allows you to program and channel capital through time and space. And in time, it means that we have the hope of addressing things like global payments for 8 billion people at the speed of light off of mobile phones with no intermediary, right? So that's interesting. How do I actually do 100 transactions a second if I'm an AI bot and I want to trip through cyberspace, right? I mean, that's interesting. You won't do that without digital energy or digital capital. But the other issue is, well, how do you actually send a bunch of capital forward in time 100 years, right? And you can't do it with gold. You can't do it with a building. You can't do it with a share of stock. I mean, name a company that's still in existence from 100 years ago off the top of your head where the stock is worth more today in real terms than it was then. It would be kind of challenging, right? So projecting economic energy through time and space has really been more of an aspirational fantasy, right? Or an art than it was ever a science or engineering discipline. Bitcoin, it takes something from the artistic and from the religious and from the political domain, and it moves it into the engineering domain, where now there is actually a precise way to move capital around, to store capital, to capitalize. And I guess your question is, how will the world change? Profoundly, right? I mean, I can create an AI that can live in cyberspace capitalized by Bitcoin that will live forever, that'll have economic mortality, that is completely sovereign from a company, a person, a country.
That concludes our video for today, featuring Michael Saylor discussing the future of Bitcoin and its potential to reshape the world. He delves into specifics on how Bitcoin can enhance corporate longevity, extend economic vitality, and provide pure digital capital. Saylor also suggests that Bitcoin can address global payment issues and secure capital for the future. These are profound and invaluable insights. What are your thoughts on Saylor's analysis? Please share your comments and observations in the section below. Subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.